Imagine a dog who made friends wherever she went, until one day she vanished without a trace. No collar, no clue, just gone. For 2 years she waited, silent and heartbroken. No one knew her name until someone saw one photo. What happened next will stay with you forever. This is the story of a dog named Rosita. Rosita was a big, beautiful brown dog with soft ears and kind eyes. She looked like she might be part chocolate Labrador. But it wasn't her looks that made her special. It was her heart. Rosita was full of love. She was playful, gentle, and always curious about the world. But Rosita had one little problem. She loved to explore. No matter what her owner, Orion, did, she always found a way to escape. Orion fixed the fences, locked every gate, and even tied her up with a leash in the yard. But Rosita was smart. She would wiggle out and go off on her own little adventures. Most days, it was harmless. She'd slip away while Orion was at work and be back before he came home. The neighbors knew her well. She was the friendly dog who walked through the streets with a wagging tail and a big doggy smile. Children played with her and threw her balls. Some people left out water and food for her. Everyone loved Rosita. She wasn't just a dog who ran away. She was a dog who made friends wherever she went and left a little joy behind each time. While Rosita knew all the ways to get back home, one day, something went wrong. She was walking through her usual neighborhood when she saw a squirrel running across the grass. Rosita couldn't help herself. She loved to chase, not to catch, just for fun. She ran after the squirrel, her tail wagging and ears bouncing, but the squirrel was fast. Rosita kept running and running, farther than ever before. When she finally stopped, the squirrel was gone, and so was everything she knew. The streets looked different. The houses were strange. Rosita was lost. She tried to walk back the way she came, but every turn seemed wrong. The more she walked, the more confused she felt. Her paws began to hurt, and her mouth felt dry. She looked for water or a kind face, like she would find back home. But this place was not like her neighborhood. When she entered the backyards, people shouted and chased her away. That had never happened before. At home, people gave her treats and water. She saw some kids playing and ran toward them, hoping they'd throw a ball or pet her, but they screamed and ran, scared of the big dog they didn't know. Rosita felt alone, and very far from home. That must have broken her heart. Rosita had always been treated with love. People smiled at her, gave her food, and played with her. But now things were different. She didn't understand why these people were scared of her. She wasn't mean. She just wanted someone to care. Then, some kids started throwing rocks. Others shouted that she was a stray, a dangerous dog. Rosita didn't know what those words meant, but she knew it didn't feel good. She was tired, hungry, and alone. Still hoping to find her way home, she kept walking. But as the sun went down and the sky grew dark, fear crept in. She found a big tree and curled up beneath it. It wasn't warm, but it was quiet. The next morning, a few kind people saw her lying there. Gently, they called her. Rosita, still believing in kindness, slowly walked over. They took her to Arca Animal Shelter for safety and a new chance. The shelter was a kind place. The people who worked and volunteered there truly cared about every animal that came through the door. One volunteer, named Sylvia, noticed Rosita the moment she arrived. "She has the saddest eyes I've ever seen," Sylvia said softly. Rosita wasn't wild or mean. She was just lost and heartbroken. Rosita didn't want anyone to touch her. She stayed in the corner of her kennel, curled up tightly. Sylvia and the others gave her warm blankets, soft food, and spoke to her gently. They didn't rush her. They just sat nearby, hoping one day she would feel safe again. But Rosita had gone quiet inside. She didn't bark. She didn't wag her tail. She didn't even lift her head when someone called her. It was like she was waiting for someone special. Sylvia believed Rosita still hoped her real person was out there, missing her too. Sylvia looked for clues. She checked for a collar, a tag, anything that could tell her where Rosita had come from. But there was nothing. The shelter tried to find her a new family. They introduced her to kind people who wanted to adopt. But Rosita always hid. When someone came near, she would slip behind the volunteers, just like a shy child hiding behind their mother's leg. That was the only time she showed trust, when she was close to the ones who had cared for her. On the other hand, Orion never stopped looking for Rosita. He put up posters all over town, on poles, walls, and shop windows. He asked everyone he met if they had seen his dog. But no one had. It was like Rosita had disappeared. Time went by. New dogs came to the shelter and found homes quickly. Cute puppies were adopted in just a few days. But Rosita stayed. Week after week, she grew quieter. The volunteers were worried. She didn't play. She didn't trust. It was like her heart had closed up. Still, no one gave up on her. 2 years later, a shelter worker named Violet had an idea. "Let's share her story on social media," she said. "Maybe someone will see her and want to help." But Rosita made it hard. Every time they tried to take a photo, she turned away or curled up in a corner. Her body showed the truth. She was still broken inside. Finally, after many tries, they got one photo that was clear enough to share. In the picture, Rosita's eyes looked so sad, it made people's hearts ache. She didn't look angry or wild, just lost and lonely. Still, the shelter posted the photo with a short message. "She's shy. She's scared. But she still deserves love." They didn't expect much. Rosita had been waiting for 2 years. Most people wanted puppies, dogs that were young, happy, and full of energy. Rosita was different. She had forgotten how to smile. But then, something amazing happened. Far away, Orion's mother was scrolling through shelter pages, like she always did. For 2 years, she had been quietly searching, never giving up hope. She didn't really think she'd find Rosita anymore, but she kept looking, just in case. And then she saw the photo. Her heart skipped a beat. She leaned in closer and whispered, "That's Rosita." Without wasting a second, she called the shelter. She was nervous. What if the dog had already been adopted? But no, Rosita was still there. The shelter staff were stunned. Could this really be the same dog after all this time? They invited Orion and his mother to visit the very next day. Orion didn't waste a second. As soon as he heard the news, he dropped everything and drove straight to the shelter with his mom. His heart was beating fast. Could it really be Rosita after all this time? He was scared to hope, but he had to see for himself. At the shelter, the volunteers gently brought Rosita out. One of them began recording the moment, hoping it would be something special. But it didn't go how they expected. Rosita didn't run to Orion. She didn't bark or wag her tail. Instead, she backed away and hid behind the volunteer, just like she always did. Orion's heart sank. This was his dog. He knew it. But she didn't seem to know him anymore. Still, he didn't rush. He got down on the floor, sat quietly, and softly said her name. "Rosita." She froze. Her ears perked up. Slowly, carefully, she took one step forward, then another. She sniffed his hand. Then something changed. Her tail gave a small wag, then another, and then, suddenly, she jumped into his lap. Her tail wagged wildly. She licked his face again and again. She shook with happiness. She remembered him. Everyone in the room had tears in their eyes. Orion held her tightly, crying into her fur. After 2 long years, Rosita was finally going home. More than a year later, Orion shared an update. Rosita never tried to run away again. She no longer searched for something out there. Everything she loved was right beside her now. She had found her way back, not just to her home, but to her heart. This is the story of a dog who waited and a man who never stopped believing. Because real love never fades. It waits, it remembers, and it always finds its way back.